everyone, it's Sherry. I hope that you are having a wonderful day. Welcome to a very different Super Simple Sunday. Stay tuned. Welcome to my channel. I am so glad that you decided to stop by, and welcome to all of my new subscribers. Welcome to all of my new friends. Welcome to anyone who just happens to be stopping by. I'm so glad that you're here, and I am so appreciative for all of the support that you guys show me and my channel. Well, it's Super Simple Sunday, and ordinarily that would mean a scrap project, but we're not going to do that today. So today I'm going to answer a question from one of you, Carol Achapinti. I don't know if I just butchered your name or not, but you sent me a very good question. And that question was, does scrapbook paper get dated? So I thought I would use Super Simple Sunday to touch on this topic. It might be helpful to people who are new to paper crafting. Those of you who are not new to paper crafting, what I share might be old news, but I think it's news worth sharing. So let's get started. So before we get started, I want to preface everything that I'm about to review with you with this disclaimer. I am not the end-all, know-it-all to all things paper crafting. What I know and what I've learned about paper crafting comes from a lifetime of crafting, in particular, over 35 years of paper crafting. So I have definitely gone through a few things with paper. I have had some paper experiences, both good and bad, that make me just a little bit qualified to talk about paper crafting. So the quick answer to that question about whether or not papers can become dated, old, stale, go bad, the quick answer to that is yes, they can. Just like everything in life, papers do age, and I'm going to use money as an example. Look at the crisp, brand new bill when it's printed, but after that bill gets used, it starts to show some age. And that is true of our scrapbook papers as well. They can show age on our projects. The projects that we make using those scrapbook papers, the more that project is handled, the less likely it becomes that that project will look as good or as new as it did when you first made it. So I wanted to use that as an overall example of how our finished projects can age. But we're going to focus mainly today on our stored papers. Papers that we have not yet used, papers that we have stored, and what happens to them over time. So I'll be using these two paper packs as my primary examples. I have papers in my collection that are 15 and 20 years old, and most of those papers are still in very good condition. I have papers that are 10 or 12 years old. Most of those papers, to look at them, are still in very good condition. The colors are just as vibrant as they were when I bought the paper pad or when I bought the paper. And one of the reasons for that is because of how I store my papers. I make sure that my papers are stored in a temperature-controlled environment. Where I would not store my papers are a garage that doesn't have temperature control, an attic that doesn't have temperature control, or a basement that doesn't have temperature control. And there's a reason for that. The temperatures in those places that I just listed vary. So if they're not temperature controlled, then you're going to have the extreme heat of summer or the extreme cold of winter or the dampness that might come with rain or other wet weather. So if you do have your papers stored in your attic or in your basement or in your garage and those places are not temperature controlled, then slowly over time that environment might contribute to the deterioration of your papers. So the environment in which our papers are stored can definitely play a role in the long-term quality of that paper. Now, let's say you do have your papers stored in a temperature-controlled area. Are they safe from the effects of aging? Everything is going to age. So even if your papers are indoors, unfortunately, the passage of time and aging affects everything. Even if your papers are stored indoors, there are some things about our papers that might cause them to not have the same awesome effect that they had when we first purchased them. And I am going to bring in this paper pad as an example, not picking on die cuts with a view because I love them. I'm using this paper pad because it has some treatments on it that time might affect. This paper pad is 10 years old. It's a beautiful paper pad. Look at these awesome cut aparts. I have used a lot of things from this pad, and as I'm looking at it, I'm wondering why I haven't used these, but I will. But I'm going to show you a couple of pages in this paper pad that might get affected by the passage of time and aging. This paper has an embedded treatment on it, and it's almost like a glitter plastic coating on it. Over time, a treatment like this might become brittle, and when you go to score and fold it, you might experience some cracking that you didn't experience on other pages in this book that were used when it was first bought 10 years ago. And the cracking and the brittleness do not speak to the quality of this actual paper or paper pad. Y'all, every day there's a new bone in my body that's cracking or creaking. It just happens with age. The same thing happens with some of our papers. We have treatments on some papers that are prone to aging faster than papers that don't have treatments on it. So I'm going to slide this over for a minute, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. This is a pad that has 180 sheets in it. This is a paper pad that I normally buy when I want to make envelopes because it's text weight paper. So I am just going to take one out so that you can see it's just like printer paper. I can cut this down and run it through my printer and get a print on it. And these two paper pads are stored under the same conditions. But I know that if I go to make an envelope using this paper, I'm going to be able to score it and fold it, and I'm going to have a beautiful envelope with no cracking or wear and tear showing. This one I won't know until we do it. So y'all, we are going to do it. I am going to take this piece, and we're going to take this piece, and we're going to make two envelopes. And we're going to see whether or not the passage of time has affected the quality of these two papers. So I am going to cut them both. At 6 by 12. And I am going to see if I am able to get two envelopes from both. So we're going to put this in. We're going to score at 1/2 inch and 5 1/2. Then I'm going to score at 4 1/4 and at 8 5/8. Do the same thing on this one. So we're going to put it in, score at 1/2 inch and at 5 1/2. 4 1/4 and 8 5/8. And then I'm just going to fold and burnish all of my scores, starting with that text weight non-treated paper. I'm not going to put the envelope together, but we're going to look at where we have the creases. We don't have any distress at all. So this paper has held up well after 10 years in my backyard studio. We're going to do the same thing. The same paper pad is from my backyard studio under the same conditions. My backyard studio is fully heated and air conditioned. So my papers are always in a temperature controlled environment. So I am going to take this. We're going to fold it. Fold it. Fold it here and fold it here. And I don't know if you guys could hear it, but even as I was scoring it, I could hear the crunching and I can feel the brittleness along these ends. And this is a brittleness that wasn't there when I first started working with this paper pad. So this still looks pretty good. to be able to make an envelope. You can see where there is some cracking, but it's not too bad. But under the same storage conditions, time has affected this treated paper more so than the non-treated paper. The coating on the paper was definitely affected by the passage of time. It has nothing to do with the quality of the paper. It just happens. So I'm just going to flip through this book. And this paper also has that same coating. You can see it. So when I use it, it might just crack. And it might not. You never know. But if time is going to have an effect on papers that are in a temperature controlled environment, it would more than likely be papers like this, or papers that have the glitter effect on it. Not necessarily those glitter papers that are about this weight, where that glitter look is actually a part of the entire paper. But what I'm talking about are those glitter papers where if you run your hands over the top, you'll have pieces of glitter on your hands as you're crafting that paper. So there are certain papers that are going to be more prone to the effects of the passage of time and aging. It just happens. Even papers that are considered specialty papers can be affected by the passage of time and storing conditions of those particular papers. So what can you as a crafter do? You can make sure that you're storing your papers as well as your crafting supplies in a temperature controlled environment. If you don't have a dedicated crafting space, you can make sure that you keep them in, let's say, one of the Rubbermaid totes or one of the big totes, and that you keep that in a bedroom closet. Maybe you can slide it under the bed. Maybe you can push it off to one corner in your house, because the chances are very high that the interior of your house is temperature controlled enough to be able to protect your papers and your crafting supplies as much as we can. And whenever possible, if your garage, attic, basement, or off-site storage is not temperature controlled, avoid putting your precious craft supplies in those places. By keeping your papers and your craft supplies in a dry, temperature controlled environment, you can build a collection that is 5, 10, 15, 20 years old and still know that some of those favorite papers that you vaulted, you can now pull them out and use them on that special occasion that you might have been saving it for. So as I said at the beginning of this video, I am not the end-all, know-it-all to paper crafting, but I hope that what I have shared is enough to help some of you better understand your beautiful papers. If you have some tips on craft paper storage and craft paper storage protection, leave them in the comment section below, because you guys do read the comments and we can always learn something from someone else's experience or knowledge. So I hope that you have found this Super Simple Sunday video helpful. If you have, please hit the like button. If you are not a subscriber to my channel, I would love to have you join this amazing online crafting family. Carol Achipinti, thank you so much for the wonderful question. You guys, as always, please be safe, be kind, be the reason someone smiles today. Happy crafting, and we'll chat later. Bye.